As Eleonora said, my name is Sabine Danani. I am with USAID, and within USAID, I work with a team called Digital Development for Feed the Future, which is a team that is a joint team between the lab and the Bureau for Food Security, and the Global Development Lab and the Bureau for Food Security within USAID. And we are really looking at ways to use more digital tools and solutions in USAID's Feed the Future program. And one of the ways that we are doing that is through this data-driven farming prize. So thank you again for your interest. I know we have 37 people and growing on this webinar, and we're really excited by all of the excitement that's been generated and all the interest that people have shown on this prize. Great. So today we're going to go through a lot of information for all of you. So we're going to talk a little bit about the prize. What are some of the needs and solutions that we found that smallholder farmers in Nepal are looking for? We're going to discuss some of the barriers to the environment in Nepal. And then we're going to go through a fair number of resources that we've made available via this platform and through this prize, both that USAID and Nesta have made available, but also resources have been made available through our great partners at CIMMYT and the Microsoft Innovation Center and Easy Mode. And then we're going to conclude with some rules about the prize, the deadline, the timeline, and all the relevant information you need about how you can enter for the prize. And then we're going to leave lots of time for question and answers. Great. So I guess people ask us, how did we come to this prize in particular? And what this prize really aims to do is seek tools and approaches that source, aggregate, and translate data into actionable, timely, and context-specific information for smallholder farmers to improve agriculture productivity. So one of the things that we had seen was that there were all these great advances when it came to data collection, to using things like geospatial information, weather information, soil information, on-the-ground information through farmer surveys. There have been these great advances in this sort of data collection methodology, but rarely did we see that data being translated into actionable information for the smallholder farmer or for intermediaries that work with smallholder farmers. Oftentimes that data was collected, lots of resources were invested to collect that information, and it usually just sort of sat at that researcher programmatic level. And so what we really want to do through this prize is try and find solutions that really bridge that last gap between the farmer or the ag extension worker and these data sets, and think about how you can make this preponderance of data available, and how you can make it more localized, more in season, more specific for farmers, which will ultimately improve to improving yields and efficiencies. So yeah, and I'm going to hand it back to Eleonora to go into what they discovered. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Sabine. So I will be talking about what are the needs that we heard from the target group for these prize solutions, who are farmers and extension services in the agricultural value chain in Nepal. And therefore, what are the outcomes that we would like solutions to meet, and how and why digital solutions can be a way to meet those needs and those outcomes. Last month, we had a moment in which we were able to go and talk with some farmers and other actors in the agricultural value chain in Nepal. And we went for some days for a field trip in the Nepal-Ganj region in Nepal, helped and supported by the USAID Kisan project staff and by CIMMYT. And we went there to collect feedback from key actors and to understand better and more what were their needs on a daily basis. And we're about now to share with you some of the key findings and takeaway from this field trip. You can find also more information about these in the data-driven farming website in the blog and news sessions. One of the first group we've been meeting with was a group of farmers from the Jalala village in Nepalganj. And what was interesting when we met with them is that when we first asked them how they wanted technology to help them in their farming activities, they've been talking about technology that can physically help the farming process. Yet, when we then went on into the conversation and we start asking more specifically what were the needs that they had on a daily basis, they said that they need a series of information and advices that can truly and properly support their decision on the ground, and in particular what they were asking for were information that can help them to identify and treat disease, information that can help them to know better how to bring a product to the market, and that means all the type of information that are linked with how to packaging products, how to transport products to the market, how much to sell a product for. And then they also wanted to better know how to use better the resources, and link it to that were the fact of understanding better what technology are out there and how they can help them. And that was particularly relevant with respect to the digital technologies, in that they didn't seem to be totally aware of what type and like how quickly they could get information and how relevant, what type of relevant information they could get through digital technology. They told us that they use on a daily basis their mobile, and they like using SMS to exchange information. They don't, the majority of them though don't use smartphone. Also, when we then spoke more directly with women, it came out that the majority of them can't read, and so the type of information that they would like to see and they would most appreciate are audiovisual information. We also had a very interesting conversation with both women and men to better understand their role in the farms. And it turns out from that conversation that when they describe their typical day, it's clear how both men and women play a very important role for the farms and for the agriculture production. And therefore, we are looking for solutions that can be usable by both women and men. Later on, we then met with a cooperative group, the Suridai Farmers Cooperative. And when we spoke to them, they confirmed once more the need for better qualitative information. In particular, they stressed the need for information that can support their product to become more marketable. And that means how to, like information that explains them how to be able to yield higher value crops, training and demonstrations for new farming techniques, information on how to become more productive and what type of products are offered in the agriculture markets, and therefore what also are missing and which one are needed, and how to tackle drought and improve irrigation technique. They also show a great interest for type of digital solution that could become source to collect new and timely and relevant data, like for instance, a sensor on a tractor. The need to become more marketable that we heard from pretty much all the actors we've been talking to, it turns out to be a particularly important one, in that today there is a lot of loss in the production, and so there is a need to generate a type of information that can better coordinate production and therefore prevent loss. This is what we also heard quite a lot from other markets from that deliver extension services in the agriculture value chain in Nepal. In that sense, we spoke with a market committee, with 2 agro businesses, and a rice miller. And as you will notice from those people, we heard similar type of needs. The market committee of Kualpur we spoke with, they reiterated the need of prevent loss. Today, the loss can reach up to 20 to 30% of production. And so a way to prevent this loss is learning how to better doing packaging and storage of goods. Another thing that is really important is that of understanding what are the consumer's needs, so to avoid to bring to the market excess of products, which then leads to price that can drop very much. So the same vegetable price can drop from 150 Nepalese rupee all the way down to 2 Nepalese rupee per kilogram, and that is a big loss. What they in particular explain us is that there is a need to create a more sophisticated value chain. And today, the product goes from the field to the market, but there are a lot of things that needs to happen in the middle. And for those things to happen, there is a need of create timely and reliable information to build it. So what we heard is that there are some toll-free numbers or some initial digital solutions, some app that exist, and some of those actors use them, but not always, or say not for all of the needed information that we've heard. Those information in these existing tools are updated, or there are just not enough of them. So there is a great room for improvement. The improvement of the agricultural value chain would also be a way to ensure new job and ensure that youth can stay, like, see the value of staying in the farm and growing the productivity, as opposed to leaving it and going for a way out of the farms close to city to look for new jobs and that can generate more income. And the reason why it's important to keep the interest, like to make the farm a value place for youth to work on it, is that they are the one that best know how to use technology, as all type of technology, including digital technologies. When we then spoke, we then meet with an agro-business in Gamboja, and what we heard from them is they again said how important it is for them, both for the agro-business and an agro-veterinary business that we met, how important it is for them to receive updated and content-specific information, as they are very often the person that will give advices to farmers on what to crop, when, how, and what to sell, how much for. And so for them, it's important to know what to say. And what they explain us is that today, because we can cultivate all year long any type of vegetable, it is very difficult to anticipate market flow. And so it is important to understand in all the district of Nepal what is being planted, what the consumer are asking for, and make sure to create more differentiation in the farming and in what is grown. We then met with an agro-veterinary business that also explained us that farmers don't necessarily like to take the risk to farm in new ways or to farm new crops. And so they said that it is important for them to have the type of information that make them playing as expert and provide them good advices. And he told us that videos has been very effective to convince farmers on the use of new technique or planting new crops. To end up with, we met then with a rice miller in Daborji as well, and he explained us how a digital solution can also be useful to create stronger network and relationship between farmers and services, like his own service of being a rice miller. And he reiterated the need of receiving better information about how to mitigate weather risks and what type and how much to sell a product for. So knowing how to face drought and irrigation problem and knowing how to better being marketable. So to recap all the needs that we heard about, both farmers and extension services in Nepal required the information to know what crops to plant and when, to know how to best use the soil to maintain its fertility, to learn new technique for fertilization, to know how to bring the product to the market, and that means packaging, transports, and etc. To know how much to sell the products for, to know what are the products most requested in the market, to know if it's possible how to predict weather risks such as rainfall or drought. And then those information need to be in Nepali language, and the best would be to have a mix of audio, visual, and textual information. So based on all those needs that we heard, what we are asking NTRIS is to demonstrate data-driven solution that can be tested in Nepal and are able to produce at least one or more of the following outcome. Family and context-specific data-driven insight aimed at improving the production of rice, other cereals and vegetables in Nepal. Support a more sustainable way of farming by lowering the environmental impact of agriculture. Develop the marketplace by providing inputs, extension services, and connection that support farmers in a sustainable way. Improve the level of understanding and use of agriculture products such as fertilizers or quality seeds that can contribute to increased productivity among smallholder farmers. And generate timely information which can be acted upon to manage weather-related risk to agriculture productivity, such as drought or excessive rainfall. So I'm going to leave now the microphone to Brian King from USAID to explain how digital solution can, why and how they can be so the solution to meet those type of needs and reach those outcomes. So I think what I will suggest at this point is to allow, I know that Brian wants to join us, so I will give it some more time and we will come back to those slides later on. And so I will leave the microphone to David Querena from CIMMYT to talk about some of the barriers in the agriculture regulation in Nepal.
Yes, hello. Leonora, could you please cycle through the slide one more?
Yeah, sure.
We'll give it some time. So just as a quick introduction to this section, Nepal is a very dynamic country, agriculturally and otherwise. But there's a couple of interesting and very unique political spheres within Nepal that restrict interactions within the agriculture value chain. And I believe that it's very important for any organization or group who's interested in the prize to have a good understanding, at least conceptually, how these systems work, what the restrictions are, and what are some of the ways to work within the systems and potentially work around the systems. So in Nepal, the agricultural system through the government are very hierarchical. So the regions in Nepal are organized into districts, and there's within the Feed the Future, I think there's 25 districts that are operating in Nepal, and so you know, we're restricted to operate in these districts. And then within each district, there's what's called a VDC, or Village Development Community, and these are sort of sub-district groupings of farming communities that are funneling through into the hierarchical government system. And then within each VDC, there's cooperatives. So district, sub-district is VDC, sub-VDC is cooperatives. And the cooperatives themselves are a grouping of maybe 100 to several thousand farmers who are coming together and collectively engaging with the government system. And this includes fertilizers. So I would say the majority of fertilizers coming into Nepal are coming in through the National Subsidy Program. And primarily this is DAP, urea, and MOP, so muriate of potash, a potassium fertilizer source. These are subsidized by the government, and they're all funneling through the districts, through the VDCs, then into the cooperatives, and then finally into farmers' hands. So this is a very kind of restricted way of fertilizer access, but it's the way that the government operates at the moment. This being said, I think that the official fertilizer subsidy scheme is supplying maybe slightly less than 50% of the total fertilizer demand. So there's an opportunity to increase sort of efficiencies in fertilizer usage coming through the government system. There's also an opportunity to think about how can we utilize some of the private sector to fill in some of the holes that's not being met at the moment by the fertilizer subsidy. So in addition to fertilizer, microfinance is also funneled through the cooperatives, through the VDCs and the districts. The government of Nepal has kind of mandated financial institutions to provide a portion of their crediting to farming and agriculture through the cooperatives. And many of the cooperatives pool their resources together, financial resources together, in order to access credit, and it provides them loans and other things to farmers. And again, this is all funneling through this government system. And then finally, the last one is that the government has an agricultural advisory service that runs through the Ministry of Agriculture, Sub-Ministry of Agriculture, it runs through the Department of Agriculture, and these then are funneled down through the VDCs into the cooperatives. And so this is the route where a lot of the formalized ag advisory services and extension services are funneling through. And CIMMYT is in cooperation with the Ministry of Agriculture and the Department of Agriculture to look at ways to revamp some of these advisory services. So there's an opportunity through the prize then to work within the system. There's also an opportunity in the prize to work outside of the system. There's no restrictions into working outside of the system, apart from if there's going to be subsidized access to subsidized fertilizers, then the subsidized fertilizers then have to go through the system. But apart from that, it can be fairly flexible. So Eleonora, would you advance the slide one, please? Excellent. Okay, so one of the resources that CIMMYT is providing for the prize is access to several data sets. You know, these data sets hopefully can be used by anyone who's looking to develop their ideas, maybe as training data sets or even analytical data sets to think about some interesting analytics. But some examples of some of the data that CIMMYT has, we regularly conduct large surveys. So these surveys are a mixture of crop cuts. So we do, for instance, in 2016, we have a major rice crop cut survey that we did that's all georeferenced. We're in the process of initiating another one for wheat. And then in this coming monsoon season, we'll be doing another one for rice and another one for maize, and each one again is about 1,000 plus georeferenced data points. In addition to the crop cuts, each crop cut has some socioeconomic questions that go behind that, which include things like indicators of household wealth, numbers of farmers in their community, numbers of people within their household, some more subjective indicators of their environment, so general assessments of soil health, general assessments of how the season is performing relative to the last season, access to irrigation. So there's a really quite a rich data set that's going behind every single crop cut that we have. In addition to the crop cut data, we have a bunch of other data sets that are focusing on more socioeconomic questions that we have. So those are the CIMMYT data sets. We also have our archiving, collating and archiving some of the government of Nepal data sets. And one of the major ones is soil data. So we have several thousands of soil data that's all georeferenced that we're archiving together. We also have population density information. We have locations of villages, locations of BDCs, road networks, really a lot of population census data that's coming from the government of Nepal that we're linking together. And we're putting all these data sets together into one unified database. I think someone's talking soon about the GeoNode that's being set up. And so we'll be posting all of these data sets onto the GeoNode. Okay, great. Yeah, so this slide here then just outlines all the different data sources, data sets that we have at the moment. We also have rainfall, temperature, and other meteorological data, really kind of long-term meteorological and weather data. And every season, CIMMYT's collecting more and more data, and all of our data is open access, so it'll all be well archived and be publicly available to anyone who's wanting to use this data.
Hello, I think I'm on.
Okay,
Hello.
this is Brian, isn't it? Yes, Brian.
Yeah, this is it, yeah.
That's great. So, yes, so we are now at the GeoNode. Shall we just jump back quickly to the solution slides and talking about why and how a digital solution can respond and be to the needs and outcome for this prize?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let me just go to the good slides, and
Sure.
here you go.
Sure. So, as the way that we've described the objective of the prize, you'll see that we integrated the word value in terms of value related to agricultural productivity, and what we're driving at with that is as other folks have alluded to, and LA presented in terms of interaction with farmers, is this idea of the value chain, the agricultural value chain for specific crops. And for those who maybe not have worked with the value chain as a concept before, it's really the idea that there are multiple links in the chain. Many of those things that come in the middle that one of the interviewees mentioned out in Nepalganj. And so, we're looking, where do different digital tools and solutions actually help to unlock value related to any particular crop? And so we kind of looked at some of the literature and consulted our colleagues and spoke with some other outside experts, and found that the planning stage, the actual inputs such as seeds or fertilizers, labor and machinery could also be considered inputs. Access to those, what actually happens on farm in terms of production, and then looking at post-harvest and minimizing loss and ensuring that agricultural production that gets into any kind of processing, if it's destined for that sort of that path to market, distribution, and market information. And the idea is that well-organized value chains are, we're still on the first slide. Well-organized value chains, information is flowing across these various levels. Information, transactional information, information exchange, a number of different types of data, digital services can be brought there. And so if we look at this first slide here and we see products, we see digitizing the agricultural value chain products, there are a number, so we're still on how. Digitizing how, there we are. So if we look at this, we'll see under products there are a number of existing digital products or services out in markets around the world. Lots of them are from sub-Saharan Africa that have started to build some momentum and actually build some evidence that they can be viable, sustainable, profitable businesses. It's not saying that they're 100% of the way there, but the evidence is building and the momentum is building around them. And so what we did was go and identify several of them. For those of you, if any of you online had participated in the launch event, I mentioned one example, which was Hello Tractor, which it started out as a tractor rental service that was mediated by mobile phones. You know, so you could rent a couple of hours of the kind of tractor that you wanted, and at a particular time that you needed. And so that in and of itself as a business model works, you know, was working well. What was really fascinating was that by virtue of having a tractor with a mobile phone on it and a few sensors, Hello Tractor was able to build up tremendous amounts of data about individual farms and use that to dial in their services. And so what started out as a pretty elegant solution for just solving an access to mechanization problem unlocked a whole bunch of data that now is enabling them to layer in with weather data, agronomic guidance, and so forth. And so they're increasingly being a data-driven farming company, whereas they started out, to my understanding anyway, as a, you know, to solve a particular problem about access to mechanization. And so I won't go through you know, sort of every example everywhere, but this first I would encourage folks to spend some time looking into these different models that we've talked out in this first slide about how, and see if there's something that is relevant to an idea that you have. Along the bottom of this slide, there are specific cases of evidence where use of a digital solution has actually started to unlock value in a way that has been documented and studied. So let's move on to the next slide of where. And so what we're capturing with this is a bit digging down a bit more into the functions or the kinds of services or information exchange, you know, sort of digital services, and where they seem to intersect with the agricultural value chain. One really interesting on this, in my sense anyway, are the cross-cutting services, particularly when you look at payments. Payments as a way to be connecting and coordinating, certainly at a transactional level, between the different links in the value chain. But again, by virtue of them being digital services, you're generating data that then it would be good to start to look at how is that data relevant to other links in the chain. So with, you know, I think that what we wish to drive home here is that there's tremendous value, you know, value that can be unlocked in agricultural value chains, as the name would imply, But sometimes you have to be looking not just narrowly at, the end user of information, or just narrowly at a particular, problem that an aggregate might be trying to solve, but really start looking at where is the value generated in the value chain, and then are there different actors at different links in the chain that would have incentive to actually be, paying or helping cost recover for a functional business model. So I think I'll stop there. Yeah, we've got there we go, great. And so it's actually David had started to point out some particular areas where in terms of value, just by way of kind of transition, let me say that, so when he was talking about greater specificity of use of agricultural inputs, there's tremendous value for production if that can be achieved, and the ability to pay or willingness to pay for the services that get there may not immediately be there among one group of value chain actors. However, there may be other actors in the value chain that do have incentives to pay. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Brian. So we are now coming, we went back to the session of the resources in which David, as Brian said, talked through what data are available. Do we have Patrick online to talk us through the use of GeoNode?
Yes, I am online. Good morning. Oh, okay. Hi, good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. My name is Patrick Dufour. I'm in Washington, D.C. right now, and I'm providing GIS technology support for this program. I'd like to briefly introduce the system we're developing. And we changed the title, but the data-driven farming GeoNode supports your efforts through open data and APIs, and the system is built on GeoNode. GeoNode is an open source, web-based spatial data infrastructure that enables collaborating on and sharing geospatial data. Users can upload existing data sets, edit data online, and share data via APIs. GeoNode has robust support for open standards and OGC services, which streamlines integration with systems or workflows you may create. For example, data from GeoNode can be easily downloaded as an Excel table or an Esri shapefile. At its core, GeoNode is built to be an open system. On the technical level, GeoNode is built on GeoServer and PostGIS. PostGIS is Postgres, is built on Postgres, the open source database system. And GeoNode is used throughout the world by international organizations, nonprofits, mapping agencies for supporting activities ranging from emergency preparedness and response, disaster risk reduction, and many more. Whether you're interested in just transportation data, land cover, or just one layer, the data-driven farming GeoNode can help. We've currently uploaded a lot of data on OpenStreetMap.
Let's go to the next slide to see it.
Yeah. So just some examples, and we're definitely looking to build out the design of the website as well as the content. So we're looking for feedback. So the GeoNode is aggregator partner in external data sets on topics including weather, topography, population density, roads, political boundaries, etc. You can also use the platform to view, layer, and filter different data sets to answer some of the key farmer questions and needs. For example, how do you bring your products to market? And we'll also be adding in relevant data sets such as feed the future zones of influence, transportation data, where markets are, and land size, or other factors that may impact delivery of goods. Yeah, so I guess that's all I got. Currently, if you go to the website, there's no street map data, but we're definitely going to rapidly add the data the CMAT data. Thank you for your time. Greatly appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Patrick, for explaining us this. Just to end up with the session about what resources will be and are available for this prize, there will be, for the 10 finalists of the prize, there will be some technical and business support provided by Microsoft Innovation Center in Nepal. Alan Tuladar from Microsoft Innovation Center in Nepal couldn't join us today, but the type of, so I will just give you a brief explanation of what is this technical and business support that they will provide. In particular, this will be access to cloud services. Microsoft BizSpark is a global program that helps startups succeed by giving them free access to Microsoft Azure cloud services, software, and support. And then during the 2 months of the develop that will be given to the 10 finalists to develop for their prototype and solution, Microsoft Innovation Center Nepal will provide one-by-one and weekly support and mentoring support for the development of the business plan. This support and how it's going to be structured will be further explained and during the co-creation event that the 10 finalists will be invited to at the end of May. So before going into the final session of our webinar today, which is the session that we will be leaving for question and answers, and please do remember to send your question to us. I will just use another 10 minutes to walk you through the rules on how to participate, where to find the information, and what are the judging criteria for the prize. So to begin with, the prize has a whole range of eligibility criteria. Eligibility criteria are criteria that tell us, are a number of criteria that tells who can participate to the prize and what are the criteria that application needs to meet in order to be considered. Without those criteria met, application won't be considered for further assessment. So let's go and look through them. The prize is open to all. We are open to solutions from individuals, groups, organizations, and companies globally, and all sources and sectors. We are particularly looking for innovators from South Asia region. We are looking for local applicability of solution in Nepal. So that is a global call, and solvers can respond from all over the world. However, the solution will be tested and applied in Nepal. We are asking all entrants to be willingness to share ideas. All entrants in that sense need to demonstrate a willingness to share their experience and learning to help establish a body of knowledge that can bring about a sustained change in the use of data to improve agriculture productivity. We also ask for prototyping skills, and that is in particular with regard to the fact that applicants need to ensure they have the capacity to develop a prototype of the solution over the challenge of the time frame. This is because if you apply and then you will be selected amongst the 10 finalists, we will require you to join, we will invite you to join the co-creation event at the end of May, and at that point you will need to join with a prototype of your solution that we will first test during the 3 days of the co-creation event, and then you will be then given 2 months time to further develop your prototype. So we are then asking, there is an eligibility criteria that ask that talk about the intellectual property. So as you will also see repeated in the term of condition of the prize, an intellectual property in the submission must belong to the applicant. Applicants will retain the intellectual property rights to their entry to the prize. Such intellectual property must be clearly marked as proprietary. It is applicants' responsibility to ensure that they are not infringing on the intellectual property of others. Another eligibility criteria, which speaks quite on its own, is that incomplete entries will not be considered. So when you will go through the application process, you will be asked to respond to a whole range of questions. All questions are mandatory. Application needs to be in English. And we are asking, so the last one, the USAID responsibility determination, means that USAID will conduct a responsibility determination prior to the award to ensure that award to the organization makes applicable USA law, including regulation administered by the Office of Foreign Assets Control of the USA Department of Treasury. And for more information in the data-driven price platform, in which you will find all those eligibility criteria listed, you have a link that brings you to where you can find more information about these task criteria. The timeline of the prize, we are now on the call, during the period of the call for applications. That will be ended April the 6th. And after which we won't accept any other application. During the month of April, we will be assessing the entrants, and at the end of the month, we will be announcing who are the 10 finalists. The 10 finalists will then be invited for a co-creation event, which will be in May, at the last weekend of May, and it will be in Nepal, close to Kathmandu. During that co-creation event, there will be a first occasion for the finalists to test their prototype with the farmers and extension services and to receive some form of mentoring support for their prototype development. Finalists will be then given all the months of June and July to test their prototype and to refine and develop and write a development plan, a business development plan for their prototype. They will have to submit it on the 4th of August, and during the month of August, judges will convene to identify who are the winners. There are 4 winners for this prize, 2 of which will win a prize of 100K, and 2 of which will win a prize of 50K for the most promising solutions. All this information that I've just shared with you can be found onto the Data-Driven Farming Challenge, Data-Driven Farming Prize platform. You have the link in that slide. And in the platform, on the homepage that we can see here, a screenshot from in the slide, you have the timeline we've just been looking at together now, and right down this one you have where you can submit your application. We accept application only submitted online. In that same, scrolling down on that homepage, you will find all the information and about the prize, like the principal milestones and how the prize is organized. And towards the end of the homepage, you'll also find the list of the entry eligibility criteria and judging criteria. I want also to, on the top side, so where I'm now with my mouse, of the data-driven of the homepage, you'll find information of who are the partners behind this prize, what are the judging criteria that we will take a moment to look into now together. The data sets is where we have collected a whole range of data sets that can be useful for you for the development of your solutions. And the resources is probably where I wanted to grab your attention for, because it's where you're gonna. It's the resources that is a page in where you're gonna find all the important information for the prize. So in that same page, we gathered all the rules, so terms and conditions, FIQ, eligibility criteria, judging criteria, and then you'll also find the list of resources that we made available, including an innovator's handbook in which everything that we've been discussing today together is replicated, and you'll also find a sample of what is the entry form, like how does it look like the entry form that you have to submit online. You will find the link for the GeoNode platform that Patrick has introduced us before. You will find a link to the datasets again. You will be finding some insights about digital solution that Brian has explained us before. And you will also find any type of additional information and resources that will be made available will be uploaded there. There is then a final page that is the news and blogs. In that page, you will find our blogs, some of which talk through about the farmer needs and the extension services needs that we've been discussing before. And in this page, we will also welcome the blogs from the 10 finalists of the prize. So just to replicate, the deadline for application is on the 6th of April at 11:59 East time. And if you have any question about how to apply and they cannot be, like you can't find your answers on the data-driven farming prize platform, please contact us. And if you want to engage with us as well, you can follow our tweet using the hashtag DDFarming. Before going into the question and answer for this webinar, I will just spend, I will go quite quick because I'm aware that we are running out of time and I want to give a good amount of time to respond to your questions. But before going there, I'm going to take some time to walk you through the judging criteria. So the judging criteria are the criteria that assessors and judges will be looking at to evaluate your entries. So for all those entries that we will be considering eligible, because, they will then be going into they will then be assessed by the judges looking at those criteria. To explain it differently, when you will go through the entry form and respond to it, you will be see that for each of those criteria, we're asking 2 or 3 questions. So it's good to understand what those criteria are. So the first criteria is about the fact that we are asking a solution to be data-driven. That means that solution, like we will be looking the extent to which data is incorporated into the product and service that you will suggest. We will also be looking how effectively the solution translates data into accessible and actionable insights for farmers. And then we will also be looking how solution can demonstrate a new or adaptive ways of improving productivity or introducing a completely new approach for agriculture. So how the translation, the aggregation of data and translating them into insights is actually actionable insights for the use of farmers and extension services. The second criterion is about the potential impact. And so for that one, what we're asking to articulate is a clear understanding of the specific need of farm level and how these are being addressed. What we know here, and that's why we call it potential impact, is that we are asking you to come up with a solution that is a prototype. So you will have to demonstrate us that you understand the potential that this solution, once it's going to be on the market, the potential impact that it can create. And we are asking the extent to which applicants have developed a working prototype of the solution by May 2017 to gather feedback from smallholder farmers and extension services on its utility and perceived impact for representative categories of intended adopter and users. In particular, we want the solution to be capable to be used by different range of smallholder farmers, including men, women, and ethnic minorities. That talks to the criteria number 3, which is the usability. So for whom? It is important that the solution can be easy of use so that it can properly be used by all the potential users of it. It is important to collect direct feedback, and that is very much true for the 10 finalists during the last months of the prize program. They will have a moment and a possibility to test the solution with farmers and extension services, and what we are asking there is that for them to collect direct feedback from the testing. And so while you are ideating and your solution in the entry in this first stage, it is important for you to factor in how you will be able to test your solution with farmers and extension services. Another criteria that we will be looking into is the affordability. So how much the solution will cost, and that is linked with usability of solution, of course. So we're asking in particular value for money to the farmer or other end user, consideration for materials used to produce to ensure that the solution is a good quality, but also the material is reachable and it's possible to produce it in Nepal, and appreciation of the cost to market and comparison to cost of existing solutions. So understanding in which market you are operating and you are looking to scale your solution in. We're then asking for growth potential of the solution. So making sure that the solution we are suggesting can be sustainable both from a financial point of view and an environmental point of view. In particular, how well the solution has been developed in relation to a particular market and how well that market is understood. And we are talking about the Nepalese market, of course. So we're asking the extent to which teams can show the potential and their specific opportunity for growth and the development of a sustainable business model that allows for ongoing product updates and maintenance will also be considered. That means that you have to have a sense of what will be the future of your solution once it enters in the market. And then how the solution minimize environmental impact and ensure the sustainable use of natural resources, which is of a particular interest because we are talking about agriculture productivities, and so the use of natural resources. And then a final criteria talk about privacy and security. So what needs to be considered here is that we've been asking solution, we're talking about solutions that use data, that are data driven. So it is important that they have an adherence to any data protection law of Nepal and the host country of the applicant. We are also suggesting applicant to look into the digital principle, which can be available in the link, the digitalprinciple.org link, that are a good source of principle and suggestion on how to make sure that privacy and security are protected when developing digital solutions. So, thank you everybody for being with us until now. we have collected the question that came from you, and we will take this time to respond to those questions. So I will just ask you to a couple of minutes. I will really 2 minutes of a clock of break, just to give you a moment to breathe after such a long presentation. And in 2 minutes, so at 10:10, we will be start responding your questions. Hello. So we are back here for responding to the questions. What I will be doing is reading through the question and then call one of the panelists to respond. So we have a question from Franklin in Tanzania. This is my first experience with Feed the Future. I work for an NGO that, among many, intends to see the sustainability of natural resources. Is this the right place for me and my organization? So, Brian, do you want to take this question?
Yes, certainly. So, hi, Franklin. So, Feed the Future is U.S. government's food security initiative. It's operative in 19 countries, and the way that, including Tanzania, I should say, and the way that Feed the Future works is there are target value chains, crops or value chains, and there are specific areas, subnational geographies where Feed the Future.
Brian, you cut it out. Okay, so hello, here you are. Great.
Yes. Okay, so the data-driven farming prize, as you saw from the criteria, is about successful, solutions, digital solutions that are relevant within the Nepal context. So, you could, if you have some way of, working on that, perhaps with another partner, then maybe it could be a place for you. But if you're interested in Feed the Future generally, you can look, look at the initiative website for Tanzania, Feed the Future Tanzania, and you can see the specific crops and the specific subnational geographies where Feed the Future is active in Tanzania.
Okay, thank you. So question number 2, I think, Brian, this is also for you. The question is, are there examples of worked out model that has been validated in some country on similar program of agriculture? I wish to learn on a case basis.
The few slides that I spoke to earlier have our best attempt at pulling together functional models, and some of them are narrowly focused on a particular kind of problem. So there are any number of organizations that do digital supports for agricultural advice. So, for example, Digital Green is very well known for developing and disseminating low-cost video on agricultural practices. There are a number of interactive voice response services that are used for providing agricultural information. There's one operated in Malawi called 321. It's an interactive voice response system. But in terms of businesses, actual business models, those are a little bit harder to find, but they are out there. There is a service in Kenya called iCow that is built around timely information on tending and raising to livestock. There's one that I've mentioned a couple of times called Hello Tractor that is sensors on tractors and then a cell phone mediated way of renting tractors and then tracking what the tractors are doing that is on good track to being a functional business. And so on the slide, the slides 19 through 21, there are multiple examples that have some degree of evidence and success behind them. So I'd encourage you to check them out.
Okay, great, thank you. I have another couple of questions here, which I think I will direct to David, if he's still with us, which I believe he is. One question is, what is the purchasing power of a typical co-op? And another question is, are we supposed to create a software solution or provide a working idea which may not involve software? Okay, David. Maybe David is giving it a moment. Brian, are you happy to respond to those as well?
Well, there are, David knows the environment better than I do, but there are an array of different kinds of cooperatives. There are, sort of micro-lending, microfinance cooperatives, some of which have gotten quite large, hundreds of members, thousands of members, and then there are small community-level cooperatives. So I think it's safe to say that it varies quite a bit. There are also, it's important to note, cooperatives of different types. Some of them related just to agricultural production, and some of them focusing on financial services or microfinance. I don't have a better answer than that it varies a lot. I personally did manage to meet a cooperative that had grown to several thousand members, and they were doing pretty sophisticated financial services. And I'm sure there must be, community-level cooperatives that are doing something much more simple.
Okay, and with respect with, are we supposed to create a software solution or provide a working idea which may not involve software?
I don't see the, okay, are we supposed to create a software solution or provide a working idea which may not involve software? So there needs to be data, so use of data, and so that implies some digital. I don't think that it necessarily means creating new software from scratch, but I do think that there needs to be use of data and ideally generating data as well by use of some digital solution. So, it could well be that there are existing software products out there that make such a digital solution work or do what we hope it to do. So if we go back to the prize statement, we're looking about we need to be using data, we need to be unlocking value from agricultural productivity, and so I think that a prototype that is using data, using digital data, will probably have a software element, but the ultimate measure is are the selection criteria, and does it reach that overall goal of using data to unlock value.
Okay, great, thank you. So a few questions here that I will read and respond. So can the team be spread out in different locations? Simple answer, yes, it can. As far as we said, the geographical limit here is that the solution needs to be applicable in Nepal. The team can come from all over the world and can be spread out in different locations, totally. Can this presentation be downloaded? Yes, it can. You're gonna find it in the resource page of the Data-Driven Farming Prize. And you can also, right now, if you open your window and go into the handout section of it, and you click the white arrow, you should be able to have the presentation, the PDF of the presentation. Does this idea have to be completely new, or could it be something that has been done elsewhere but not in Nepal? No, it can be something that has been done elsewhere but not in Nepal. However, what is going to be important, and most probably is going to be the innovation part in that solution, is that the solution responds to Nepali needs, farmer needs and extension service needs, and is applicable and usable in Nepal. So it needs to be more than just a replication. We are only targeting part of value chain. Can we apply? Oh, I'm not sure I'm understanding this question. Hang on. We are only targeting part of value chain. Can we apply? Yes. The answer is yes, as far as the part of your that you are targeting is either farmers or extension services. So people like those that we showed during this slideshow. So agribusiness, agro-veterinary business, rice millers, market committee, people that are part of the value chain, agricultural value chain, and that have a direct interaction with farmers, and therefore they can, like, supporting them, support farmers as well. So here is a long one, which I think I will direct to you, Brian, again. In the solution, we propose involves collecting enough data and developing algorithms around how it can help farmers have access to finance plus other services. But farmers themselves would not have access to the data. Would such solution be considered? They would, however, be directly impacted. Oh, so I'm not sure if Brian is still with us. Maybe again some connection problems. I'm going to respond to this question then. The answer is yes, it would be considered as far as there is a positive impact for farmers or extension services, and as far as like what you'll be able to do as for them to receive some insightful suggestion, advice that farmers or extension service can actions. So it's not necessarily needed that they can see all the data, but they need to receive the relevant information from those data. And I hope I responded to the question. So we keep receiving questions, which is why I'm pausing to go through them. Are you just looking for digital intervention or a mixture of both digital and physical infrastructure in conjunction? So, Constance, would you like to take this question?
So the solutions are likely to be digital, but we are quite interested in the combination of how that relates to infrastructure. As the farmers and the extension services mentioned when we were speaking to them, something that is very tangible for them to utilise, but also has some digital capabilities, is actually more attractive to them as a potential solution, as long as it's doing the right thing for them. So we're open to both.
Okay, thank you. And here is another question, which, David, are you on the line with us? Okay, so I suppose there are some connection problems, but I'm going to read the question and answer for what I can answer. It's a good question. It is quite difficult to get geophysical requirement at crop variety level. How does project support to find such data? So the reason why I was calling for David is that, as explained during this webinar, there'll be some support from CIMMYT as well as ISIMOD to find those data. we are aware of the difficulty for these. In the website, there are a series of, in the dataset page of the data-driven farming website, there are a series of data sets that we suggest to use for finding data. But then during the price and during the development of the prototype, there will be also time for better understanding how together and with the support of CIMID, ICIMOD, how to develop, gather new data and make them part of your solutions. And if David is on the line or can join us and want to add something on this question. Okay, so we have few minutes. So there is another question, which is, does monitoring livestock through data and technology can also be one solution? As far as it can respond to one or more of the outcomes that we listed and that you will find as well in the challenge statement in the homepage of the prize, yes, it can. Sorry, I'm just hearing another. What is important is that whichever solution you can come up with can strongly demonstrate the response of the needs and meeting the outcomes that we quite specifically listed. And during this webinar, as well as you will find them back all listed in the prize platform. So let me see. I was told.
Can you hear me? This is Brian.
Hi, Brian.
Can you hear me now? Hi there.
Yes.
So the prize is built around Feed the Future program in Nepal, which presently works with rice and maize, lentils, and horticultural crops. It may work with livestock sometime in the future.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I think we responded to all questions. Oh, I have one more, which Brian, I think I can ask you, as it's also a question that we heard already during the launch event. So can we collaborate with Nepal government to produce the solution? Are we allowed to make government as our partner to develop a system?
I think collaboration with government is what we're all doing. I mean, Feed the Future exists within an agreement with government of Nepal and Nepal State. So collaboration, absolutely. I think that one thing that gets complicated is if grant funds. I think grant funds could actually go to government. So you'd have to look closely at what it means to partner with governments in that sense.
Okay, thank you. We came to an end of this webinar. If you feel like there are questions that we were not able to respond, you can contact us through the platform. And so I'm just opening our information. You can find more information in the datadrivenfarming.challenge.org website, and you can contact us through the DD Farming Prize at nasa.org.uk, because we will have to close to complete the webinar here. Thank you very much, everybody, for participating to this webinar. I hope, we all hope it was useful and it provided some more information for you all to apply to the prize. Good luck with the application process with it. As said, please feel free to contact us for further questions.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.